years ago, I grew up in Italy, and my school, when I started teaching there, first I went to school there, and when I started teaching there, I asked, when we start learning Chumash, what Parsha do we start with? Do we start with Bereshis, the first Parsha? And they told me that they had asked the Rebbe that when they opened their school. They said, what Parsha do you start teaching kids? And the Rebbe said, you start with Lecha, because you're teaching the kids, because it's the beginning of the Jewish history, Avram Avinu.
So the Jewish identity.
That's right. We teach the kids with Avram Avinu. So we always did just the 6 days of creation, Bereshis, at the beginning of Chumash, Bereshis, and then we would skip to Lecha. We wouldn't do the whole Parsha creation, the whole Lecha, Nayach inside with little kids who are 6, 7 years old.
Oh, wow.
We'd wait, and then obviously you learn that that's part of the Torah, right? But when you first start teaching them, like inside word for word, you start with the story of Avram. So this is always my, I love this Parsha. We live all week with Avram Avinu and his journeys and beginning of our history.
I have a Jewish history book, and I was wondering why it started with the story of Abraham. I was surprised. I was like, they start from the beginning. Now that you said it made sense. I forgot to bring the Rebbe book, by the way. I have to bring it to you next. Remember I told you I have a Russian book?
Yeah, the Russian
I thought of bringing it and rushing out and for that.
So the topic this week, the Jewish insight, the way this was made, these classes, are based on the talks of the Rebbe. The Rebbe would talk every Shabbos on the Parsha for hours and hours, and they took parts of talks of the Rebbe and put it together and presented it in a way that's, the sources, you can see what the Rebbe is talking about, you always have the question and the lesson.
You mean this?
Oh. Yeah. The question this week, the point this week is, can the minority survive? It says, Avram is known as Avram Avinu, Avram our father, and is known as Avram HaIvri. Ivri means the Hebrew. Ivri, like Ivrit, Hebrew. That's where the word Hebrew comes from. And the first time it says in the Torah, it says Vayavo. It's actually in this week's Parsha, second parak, Vayavo HaPalit, and the fugitive came, Vayagid LaAvram HaIvri, and he told Avram the Ivri. And Rashi, who is the primary commentary on the Torah, asked, Vayagid Avram Ivri, who's Avram the Ivri? Why is he called the Ivri, the Hebrew? And he says, Rabbi Yehuda Eimer, Rashi quotes his father, and says, Kal ha'elam kulei me'ever echad, v'hu me'ever echad. The entire world was on one side, and he was on the other side. Me'ever means on the other side. Aver, past. Avar means the past.
Yeah? Crossing.
Like to cross. Well, the word avar means past. It means like to cross. To
grammatically, it's past tense.
Well, it's used. Me'ever means on the other side. Me'ever layam, on the other side of the ocean. If you want to say, oh, they live across the ocean, me'ever layam. But avar also means past. It means to pass over, to pass to the other side. So Ivri comes from Aver, other side. The entire, now just simply, the simple explanation is because he lived on the other side of the river, the Euphrates. At that time he lived over there. That's where he came from. They used to call him the Ivri, the guy from the other side. But over here, Rashi says the explanation of his father is because he was on the other side compared to the rest of the world. Everybody lived in one mindset, and he had another mindset.
So it's literal and metaphorical.
Exactly.
Meaning he lived away from the people. He was not a part of the we're talking about the communities.
Right. And why?
Like physically saying, right? He wasn't a part of it also.
And the reason is, what was so different about him? Why was he different than everyone else? We know the story of Abram, that he discovered, he was the first one to discover that there was one God. And everybody in those times, it wasn't just that some people served idols. That was the flavor of society in those days. It was all about idolatry. It was all about how to serve the gods and how to appease the gods and which gods were causing what. That was the whole culture that everybody was living in. And he was the one guy who was saying, there's one invisible God that I cannot see and that you cannot see, but he's a true God. And it's so hard for us to understand the difficulty in that nowadays, because belief in an invisible God is acceptable today, not just among Jews, but among the world. Like we all understand that. Back then, serving idols was a huge deal. It was the culture. It's like back then telling people that we would be serving some handheld device and we'd be
Watching cat videos.
what?
Watching cat videos.
Yeah, and we would be addicted to something that we're holding in our hand instead of going outside and working the land and discovering and traveling. People would think we're crazy, right? Because this is just a culture nowadays that we understand very well. I think it was similar and the Torah is full of like not to serve idols. Like, do we really need that nowadays? No one is attracted or nobody desires to bring slaughter an animal in front of a stone figure nowadays, right? But the Torah is full of prohibitions about that. Because back then, it really was a big deal. It was really a Yetzirah that everybody had. So everyone is doing this, and he's the one guy that's on the other side.
And he didn't learn it from Noah and Shem, right? He did not.
He didn't. After he discovered himself.
I mean, back then, that's the whole point, right? It wasn't that he was the only one because we had Shem and Noah and Eva, but that he discovered it on his own.
That's correct.
Right?
Yes.
My favorite part.
And also, he's the first one who spread it to the masses. Noah, Shem, and Eva had their own yeshiva, and special people from that generation would come and learn. They weren't teaching. He traveled around and taught. He's the first one who taught the world about one God, about monotheism.
They sat in the yeshiva, but he actually went out and
that's why
recruited people.
He's the first Jew, and Noah is not the first Jew. Noah was a tzaddik, amazing guy, but he did not change the world. He saved himself.
He was a shaliach. Interesting.
Avram was out to change the world.
Was that what Rebbe based on when he originally, that was also very, very revolutionary when Rebbe said, what year was it, by the way, when he said, go out and start?
Before the Rebbe was even Rebbe, 1950.
Ah, yeah?
Rebbe said the first
So there was a previous Rebbe that said it?
The previous Rebbe started.
I didn't know that. I always thought it was the last Rebbe.
No, the previous Rebbe started to communities that needed, it was a little bit different.
It was a community that was already Jewish, right? That was already Jewish.
No, let's say there was a shliach but the Rebbe sent a few shluchim, but the Friedrich Rebbe, the previous Rebbe, but our Rebbe is the first one who made it a thing. This is what you do. Every person should go out, find a place on the map, and go. That never existed before.
Which I'm saying, interesting. Yeah, very revolutionary.
And the Rebbe compared them to Avram and Sarah in the desert.
Right.
So how did it go from Noah, one God to idols? What was
So only Noah was serving God. Nobody else was, and he wasn't teaching people.
No, what I mean to say is after Noah, then what happened? The kids were.
Or you're saying his kids, that generation, right?
But then how did it all go to?
So I think it didn't start with denial of God's existence and just serving idols. It started with, we need something tangible. This God up in heaven, we can't.
By who?
Right after Noah, the next generation.
Oh.
It went to, there's a God, but he put other forces in charge. The sun, the moon, they all have powers. So it was God giving powers to others. And then that went down to some stupid idol that I just created that now has powers. But it didn't start, a lot of people did not deny God's existence. They just believed in a division of power. That God created the world and he left it in the hands of all these gods.
But then by the time it got to Terah,
it was just a whole culture, yeah.
Terah himself
was God, only idols.
No, I think some people still understood that there was a God who created the world. I think they were close enough to that, close enough to the flood, close enough to open miracles that they couldn't deny it. But they just believed that God left the world. God created and they left. So he's not an omnipotent God who was the only one with powers. He was the creator God, and now other forces took over.
They needed a middleman, basically.
Yeah.
There was no there was no concept of talking to God the way we have now. It still is, I think, a revolutionary idea by Judaism, even nowadays. All the other religions, they have a middleman. They all have prophets. They all have,
So did Terach believe there was a one God behind all the idols?
I don't know.
I don't mean to
possible.
get specific.
No.
but
It's possible.
When did it happen?
It says they didn't necessarily deny God's existence completely, but they said God left the world. So they didn't know there was a God. They believed, yeah, he may have created the world, but there are other powers that took over. Which means he's not a one God, because there are many gods. So even if they believed in God, they didn't believe in God the way we believe in God, that he's the only one. Truth is, even Christianity today, even though they also believe in the forces of good and the forces of evil. Like there's a God, but there's also a devil against God.
The red guy.
Which is what?
The red guy they usually show,
right. Which also tells you that God doesn't have all the power because he's someone else who's stronger than him. That's a big concept in Judaism, that everything comes from God. Even the things that seem terrible in life come from God. Because otherwise you're giving power to something other than God. It's much easier to believe that there's another existence. There's good and bad. And then your God could just be good. It's an easier way. You don't have that contradiction in life. And Jews have a lot of contradiction in life. I pray to God, I believe God hears me, and then terrible things happen to me. I have to believe that that's still good. That's much harder than saying, forces of evil won. Okay. Let's try again.
Could it be? Is there any commentary that when they built the Tower of Babel, that was in last week's Parsha. I actually joked at the Shabbos table. I said, they built the Tower of Pisa, and Rachel was the only one who said, "Oh, wait, what are you saying?" And the other girls were like, "Listen," I'm like, I told my noted. She's the only one who noted the disruption, but I was joking. But is there any commentary that says that? Because usually it's seen as a bad thing, but is there any commentary that shows it that maybe this was a way for people to want to connect to Hashem? Like it's not necessarily a bad thing. Is there?
What I've learned always is the good thing about that was that they were all united.
Right.
So the Tower of when they were doing it, they were all united in their quest what they were doing is they were trying to fight the gods.
So it is fight. It's not getting closer.
No, that it says they were trying to fight the gods so that there should be no flood again. No. It was a generation after the flood. They were like, we're not going to let this happen again. We got to banish this God from earth.
It's the very first generation then.
The first. It was the 10 generations between Noah and Avram.
Was it during the time of Abraham? The Tower of Babel?
No, it was before.
It was before. Yeah. Okay. Got it.
It was between somewhere within those 10 generations.
Right. But Terach and Abraham come from Shem, right?
Yes.
To understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it says in the Parsha, it says, last week's Parsha says exactly in order.
Because we're not Yafet and we're not Ham for sure.
Right. No shame. We're Semites. That's where anti-Semitism comes from. Shem.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So the question is, Avram, why was Avram different than the rest of the world? Because of his monotheistic views. First, Avram seeked the truth, then he found it, and then he started teaching it to everyone. And he was able to survive the tide against the entire world. And the question is, how is that possible? Because numbers don't lie. And majority wins. And we believe very much in that the strength is in numbers. How is it possible that one guy, and he doesn't even have that many kids, he has one son, right? So it's him and his son against the entire world. How is it possible? What is it about them that he was able to?
Not even son in the beginning.
Right.
Son is like many years later.
Yeah.
But we should know that it's also Sarah. She was a big force behind them. Like she was really like forefront. It's not like sitting at home and cooking.
Okay. Source number 2, this is the beginning of this week's Parsha. Hashem said to Avram, go from your land, from your birthplace, and from your father's house to the land that I will show you. Hashem tells him, go away from this lifestyle, go away from all the people over there, and go to the land of Canaan, where you're going to find a lot of people who you will have to influence. And not only that, but he goes through 10 challenges. So Avram is challenged by Paro. He goes down to Egypt, and Paro kidnaps his wife, takes his wife. Then Abimelech takes his wife, and then we know that Sodom and Sodom and Gomorrah, established a community where kindness is non-existent, right? We know that Avram still continues. He still continues his lifestyle. He still continues to show kindness to others, even though over and over and over again, he is the one guy against the tide, against the current. Let's go to source 3. Should we go around and read?
So what's the answer? Why?
Wait.
Okay.
That's what we're exploring. That's what we're exploring.
Would you like to read? Do you want to read source 3? They took Lot and his possessions.
They took Lot and his possessions, the son of Avram's brother, and they departed, and he was living in Sodom. The fugitive came and told Avram the Hebrew, who was living in the plains of Mamre, the Amorite, the brother of Eshcol, and the brother of Abner, who were his confederates. Avram heard that his kinsmen had been taken captive, and he trained he armed his trained men, those born in his house, and 318 pursued them until dawn. He divided himself against them at night, he and his servants, and smote them and pursued them until Hobah, which is to the left of Damascus. He restored all possessions, and also restored his brother Lot and his possessions, and also the women and the people.
Right. So we see again, after his wife is taken by Paro and by Abimelech, now a big war breaks out. 5 kings against 4 kings. It's a big war in the Middle East. And he hears that Lot was taken captive. Nobody comes to Lot's aid. Nobody comes to restore justice. Avram by himself, just with his men, comes and joins the war to restore justice and to take Lot back and to give him his freedom. So again, Avram standing against the whole world. And what is it that gives him the power to do this? Not only that, but when it says when Yitzchak, I think we once did this in Torah. I think we once read through this Medrash. There's a Medrash that says that at Yitzchak's bar mitzvah, when he turned 13, Avram made a feast, and he invited all the important people of the time, including Og the giant. And at the feast, Og started arguing with Avram about him being against the rest of the world, and says, "You're not going to survive. Your ideology, not you yourself. Your ideology won't survive. Your religion won't survive. You and your son against everyone. It may be true that there's one God. It's not going to survive throughout the millennia." And they have a whole conversation. Source 4 is going to tell us what happened. Do you want to read, Lana?
They said to Og, "Did you not say that Abraham is a barren mule who cannot father children?"
So this is at Yitzchak's bar mitzvah. Yeah.
And Og responded, "And now what is this gift? Isaac is inferior and lowly. I can crush him with my finger." And Hashem said to Og, "Why are you mocking Abraham's gift? By your life, you will see tens of thousands coming from descendants. And in the end, you will fall in his hand, as the verse states." Hashem said to Moshe, "Do not fear him, for I have placed him and his entire nation in your hand."
Mm-hmm. So
this was I was just reading it yesterday, not reading it, talking about.
Yeah.
This was a story of Balak, and when they actually killed him.
Correct. Right. He says, "You and your son will not survive. You will not be able to You're not going to be here in thousands of years from now. I could crush you. I have so many people following me. You have nobody following you. It's just you and your son and very few people in the world. And Hashem says, his children will end up killing you, which is what happened. In 1951, the Rebbe spoke about this and asked a question about this. What exactly is Og saying? And maybe Og is right. Maybe you cannot stand as two people, one person, two people against the rest of the world. And this was the Rebbe's argument. Do I continue? An argument? Hello. How are you?
The Rebbe, yeah.
Yeah, the Rebbe.
An argument was raised.
Page 2.
An argument is raised against the Jewish people's insistence on Torah observance, wherefore you are the fewest of all the nations. And there are two components to this argument. A, how can the minority be expected to hold firm against the majority? And B, even when the minority holds firm against the majority, all they achieve is self-preservation. What then is the benefit in standing against the majority when one is destined to remain the minority?
Right. You see, after all these years, even though we're still here, we're still the minority. So what's the point?
Wasn't my kid?
Is your kid Milton?
Milton? Oh, a middle name could be a.
Yeah, Milton, then it's your kid.
Did it fall in the hurricane?
Yeah, it's from the hurricane. Okay.
Okay, the numbers game in more detail. First and foremost, the Jewish people are a minority compared to all the nations of the world, for you are the fewest of all the nations. The Jewish people don't see converts and don't care if no one else joins, and they remain the fewest of all nations. The Talmud does in fact say that Hashem only dispersed the Jewish people among the nations in order for converts to join them.
So basically, we claim that we're not trying to convert anyone, right? We're just here for the Jews. We're not going out and converting, but Talmud specifically says God only dispersed the Jewish people among the nations in order for converts to join them. Okay, continue.
However, Chassidut clarifies that this can't be referring to converts in a literal sense. The fact is that the number of converts that have joined the Jewish people is negligible relative to the number of Jews in exile. Rather, this teaching of the sages is using converts as a metaphor for the observance of Torah and mitzvahs with the physical elements of the world, thereby transforming the physical into something spiritual. This is termed conversion because it is taking a physical item that has no inherent connection to Jews or Judaism, as the sages teach. Yaakov and Esav divided the universe between them. Esav took the current physical world, and Yaakov took the spiritual world to come, and making it into something Jewish.
So the Rebbe explains this when he says to get convert, we were put into exile to get converts. Doesn't mean converts as in people converting, even though many people have converted, but compared to the amount of people, the amount of Jewish people that went into galus, into exile, the few converts that we have throughout the generations is nothing. It's talking about converting sparks. Converting means changing something from one status to the other, changing the Esav of the world, which is the physical, into spiritual. That's why we're in galus. That's where we're out here to convert all the physical out here by doing Torah and mitzvahs throughout the world into spiritual. The physical, spiritual time gap. Sorry, you want to read?
Yeah. Moreover, for every Jewish person on the personal level, the amount of time devoted to spiritual matters is a minority relative to the amount of time spent on physical affairs. About our patriarchs, the sages teach that the patriarchs were the divine chariots. The founder about the Alter Rebbe explained Tanya that all their organs were completely holy and detached from mundane matters, and throughout their lives they served as a vehicle for nothing but the divine will. Another Hasidic discourse adds that this was true even while they were sleeping. This shows that it is possible for a Jew to bring themselves to such a state that even while they sleep and their life force is mainly withdrawn from their body and only a remnant remains, they can be a chariot for godliness, an entity completely devoted to spirituality and holiness. But the reality for people like us is that we aren't on such a lofty level, and our spiritual pursuits are a minority relative to our material affairs.
Yeah, so basically, most of us spend just a fraction of our day on spiritual matters, and most of our day on our physical needs and our physical life. Even though there are people, big tzaddikim, who are chariots, everything they do, when they eat, when they sleep, it's all for God. But most of us are not on that level. Most people spend majority of their day on the physical. Okay. This is especially.
This is especially true in our time of exile. Great darkness in the physical sense, which reflects a great darkness in the spiritual sense. In this dark exilic state, our spiritual leaders are certainly in the minority relative to our material affairs. This raises a question. Since we are the fewest of all the nations, and even on the personal level, our spiritual affairs are also in the minority, what is the point of the battle to observe Torah and mitzvahs, scrupulously considering that ultimately we remain the minority against the majority?
Yeah, so it almost feels like it's useless. We're always going to be a minority. And even us, the minority of our deeds are spiritual. So there's minority of a minority. It's almost like, what's the point? After all these years, it's not like we start as the minority, but over the years, our influence grew. We're still a minority. And the Rebbe goes into the idea of science and the power of the atom to explain this.
Do you think Adam has the same shorish as like a dome?
One's a D, one's a T. But maybe.
That's interesting. Wow.
It's atom.
You should start
And
writing,
this is
you
Adam.
should start writing Torah commentaries. And that's beautiful. I mean, what's that atom in Hebrew? Probably the same. Atom, no?
I know
Do they have a Hebrew word for atom?
Oh, for an
Atom?
atom?
Atom.
Probably atom, right, but that's
Because it's
taken
a scientific
from, yeah.
I was like, when you translate stuff, like maybe they pronounce it.
Which is, yeah, atom. A lot of scientific words are more Latin. So that's interesting to know what atom came from. We'll take it now.
Trying to read. The answer was page 6.
Quality prevails. The answer to this argument can be found in a recent development in science regarding atoms. In earlier times, it was commonly thought that quantity was finite and quality was proportionate to the finite limits of quantity. Better put my glasses on. Sorry.
There's only one shop.
There's only one.
Rather, the major concern is to unlock all qualities that is to be found in the quantity, to reveal and manifest the energy that is latent in the quantity. And then even a minuscule quantity can produce prodigious results. The recent discovery is that splitting the atom into minute particles can produce sufficient energy to produce results that were previously believed to require an enormous quantity of matter. Meaning the determinant is not the quantity of matter in question, but the exhaustive. This is from a secret or something?
Yeah.
Doesn't sound. Okay,
Maybe they're talking about splitting of atom and problem.
okay, I don't.
I'm here all day.
I lost my place.
Seriously,
The idea is not the quantity of matter in question, but the exhaustive utilization of the quality.
Quality to be found in even the minutest quantity
Okay,
of
and then,
matter.
okay. Thank you.
I think that's right.
Also, in the minority, what is the point of the battle is to observe
No.
Torah? And what is the point of the battle to observe Torah and mitzvahs scrupulously, considering that ultimately we remain a minority
I think
against
we
the
are on page
majority?
7.
No?
No,
We were on page 6 before, no?
yeah, but now we are on 7.
Ah, okay, we jumped. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to catch up.
Here we go.
Yeah, I thought that.
Okay.
Okay.
Utilization of the quality to be found in every.
To be found even the minutest quantity of matter.
Right.
Moreover, this utilization is made possible by splitting that matter into particles that are even minuter. That this division divests the matter of its initial identity, of its ego, so to speak, and that is what enables a minuscule quantity of matter to accomplish great things. This discovery was made in a secular science, and its immediate use was therefore for annihilation and destruction. However, in the course of time, it will no doubt be applied in beneficial and constructive ways. At any rate, we can already derive a lesson from the above. We should not be overawed by the fact that you are the smallest of all the nations. Once we harness the power that is hidden in that seeming smallness, that is the power of self-sacrifice, meaning the nullification of one's ego, like the splitting of the atom, then the minutest quantity, in fact, one single atom can transform an entire city and conquer an entire world.
Ooh.
So
You
two
know what
lessons the
year
Rebbe is
was-
teaching us. What?
What year was this? The
1951.
This one, 1951, yeah?
That's what the Rebbe
That's
spoke
when the
about.
Rebbe first started, he started talking?
So we all have chariot in us.
Because this is true. Now, we had enough physics lesson for today, Chani. But it's true. Nowadays, people look at atoms not as necessarily from a scientific point of view. I think Rebbe is referring to the atomic bomb, of course, but rather as metaphysical. A lot of it is in like explanation.
Right. So two things are, I think 2 points Rebbe is trying to bring that we can learn in our divine service from the atom bomb. Number one is it's not about the quantity, it's about the quality, because the atom is the smallest possible part of matter, and it contains the highest amount of energy. And number two, that the way to maximize the energy is by splitting it into the smallest possible, by splitting the atom, right? That's what the bomb is. Us too, if we break ourselves down to the smallest possible, in other words, shed your ego, shed all the fluff, go to the core, that's when you can maximize your potential and you have the most amount of effect, exactly, by first breaking yourself down. So not by puffing yourself up, but by breaking yourself down. And the Rebbe says, what's the tool to discover these forces within you? It's when we dedicate ourselves to the right cause. And when we put right, that's what you the power of self-sacrifice, meaning nullifying yourself, taking away your ego and just dedicating yourself to the right thing. That gives you much more power than any power that's found in numbers. So even though, yes, we believe that there's a lot to be found in numbers, the real energy is not in quantity, it's in quality, like we see from that, like we see from the atom. Compared to the millions of people out there, billions of people out there, we're nothing. And compared to the many, many hours of the day, the time we spend on the spiritual is nothing, right? Everything is a minority compared to what's out there, but it's all about the quality. It's all about the amount of energy that we can produce, the positive result that we could produce in a small amount of time. That's more powerful than many, many hours in any kind of quantity of time. Even though we're always the minority among the nations, there are a lot of examples that we can say, look, we're always on the news. Israel's always on the news more than any other, many, many bigger and larger countries in the world. The number of Nobel Peace
It was about
prize
the same.
winners.
The number of
Compared to
Jews
everyone.
in
The number of people, of Jewish people in the news, just people who happen to be Jewish in the
Politics,
news, politics, everything. The amount of times Israel was mentioned in this last election is ridiculous. There's a whole world out there. Israel's tiny. And this was like, they kept saying, I mean, Trump said, if I lose this because of the Jews, right? And they said Pennsylvania is going to be the Jewish vote. I mean, they kept saying things like that. Like, what?
No, he didn't say that.
He said it to
"I'm gonna lose
everybody."
partially, it's gonna be because of, yes.
Months ago, he said that. Was it? No?
You see
He
that
didn't
Trump
blame the Jews purely, he said partially, if
Uh-huh.
you're gonna lose, it's gonna be partially. I can quote him, anything.
I see that.
Did you see he went to the OHEL?
He did
Yes.
go to that, yes.
No, but I think he said that to somebody else. I think that's his way of like getting votes. He's like, remember to vote for me, because if you don't vote for me, I'm gonna lose. That's gonna be because of you.
Right,
That's
I
what
wasn't,
he-
I wasn't trying to,
You know,
blame him or misquote him, I'm
that's what it
just
is.
saying that
It's
the
true.
fact that
It's like,
he
you
didn't
think
say that
about
about,
it. He didn't say to Muslims, by the way. It's funny.
Right.
Although there was a
he
group.
didn't say that about the Indians or the Asians in America. He said about the Jews, that was my point, that like, even though we're a minority, we're always mentioned.
He could have said to Indian, by the way, because Usha is Indian. So
That's
it's
his wife.
interesting. Yeah, JD's wife. But it's
But
interesting.
Indians are not necessarily a minority, they are like
They're a minority in America.
Indian people.
So we're talking about Indian from India, not Native Americans.
Right.
They're minority. They're not a
How many
majority.
billion, okay.
No, socially wise, look it up, even if statistically wise. Look it up, seriously. I don't,
How many Indians?
yeah, no, they're gonna be a
Population of
minority.
India.
Minority.
Yes.
Majority is white people, come on.
Should be racist again.
Oh, I know. You sound like Russia. So, you're like,
Oh, Dvor, you're just so progressive. You're such a liberal.
Indeed.
Oh. You can see she's from California. What can you do to those guys?
What amazed me is that Florida was not a swing state this time.
Because all the New
Florida was
Yorkers,
always a swing state. Because what?
all the New Yorkers left. So bad. Like,
No, because people.
They went back
No,
to
but
New
there
York,
was
we're
talk a
afraid
few
that New
years
York is
ago.
gonna be a sweet state.
There was talk a few years ago because so many people moved to Florida
For the past
from
few years.
liberal states. They were
Yeah.
talking about Florida turning more liberal, right?
I heard of that, yeah, for the
But
past
but
two
the-
elections.
liberals who moved here,
That's right.
For the past two
The
elections.
people
they
who left
talked
New
about
York
it.
and
That's
California,
true.
people who don't want to be there, right?
Yeah.
Just interesting.
That's interesting.
But you know what? We talk about Nobel Peace Prize. We're talking about this election. You know how prevalent Jewish presence is and what an influence we have. We could go back to Avram also and see what kind of influence he had. One person against him and Sarah. I'm saying one person, but one couple against the rest of the world. Avram against the rest. I'm going to read a little bit. The above concept is exemplified in the divine service of our forefather Avram, the first Jew. The verse states, Avram was one man, utterly alone. The whole world was against him. It is also seen in the following teaching of the sages concerning the generation that built the Tower of Babel. The Torah says the whole world had one language and a united cause. On this, the sages teach. They said sharp words against two subjects that are referred to as echad, against the Lord and our God. Against the Lord is our God, the Lord is one, and against Avram was one man. Avram's isolated situation is also hinted at in the epithet Avram HaIvri, Avram the Hebrew, since the root of the word for Hebrew is aver, which means side. The sages explain that this name signifies that the whole world was on one side and he was on the other side.
Interesting.
1.5 billion people live in
No,
India.
but statistically,
Just saying.
percentage wise,
Compared to what?
compared to
Americans?
the white people, for example, or even black people. Indians are a minority. How can you say Indians are not a minority? Think statistically, socially wise, they're a minority.
When you walk down the street,
I don't care about colors, even though I work with them. This is how I.
It's not about color. We're not
Yeah.
talking about Indians as a color. We're talking about Indians as an ethnic group. They're a minority. They're definitely a minority. Now, if you want to compare to Jews, that may be question.
what about Indian Jews?
They're definitely a minority, even in Israel. Not in Muslim. Look there, Majam.
Nevertheless, although Avram was one solitary man, he took possession of the land, as the above quoted verse goes on to say. He conquered the world while he was still alone. For the verse speaks of him in the singular, not of his descendants. How he did this is explained by the verse. He called there, Vayikra Sham B'Shem Hashem, he called there upon the name of God, Lord of the world. The sages expound that the first word Vayikra, he called, can also be read as Vayakre, he caused to be called. Hence, Avram caused the name of God to be called upon by every passerby. Avram was not content with his personal awareness that God is the master of the world. He thereupon stood up and proclaimed this aloud to the world at large, convincing everyone he met, including the Arabs around him, to likewise proclaim that Hashem is Lord of the world. So the Torah tells us who succeeded. The project of the Tower of Babel completely fell apart, and its leaders and workers were scattered in all directions. While Avram achieved tremendous success, even though it was just one person against the rest of the world, he convinced thousands and tens of thousands to believe in one God. All this occurred during Avram's generation. Certainly, if we take Avram's success long-term and think about us over the generations, we see that Avram, the singular Hebrew, defeated the many in a decisive manner and taught the entire world about monotheism, about believing in one God.
If it's in parentheses, that's what the Rebbe said?
What?
What you just read in why like some excerpts here in parentheses, that's like the
Where?
exact word. Like for example, God is the master of the world, and then parentheses. He thereupon stood up and proclaimed this aloud to the world at large. That's from the Rebbe or from the Torah?
Where? I don't see that.
Here,
Show me.
right here. Look over here. You see it starts.
Oh,
with
it's not
the-
parentheses. No, it's quoting. It's
Quoting. I mean,
yeah.
not
Yeah.
not parentheses.
It's quoting, and the
quotation,
Rebbe's quoting a
quotation
pasuk.
mark,
Yeah.
So that's Rebbe's words quotations or from the Torah?
No, wait, quotations Rebbe's quoting the pasuk, just like it says, da 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 da.
All of this is Rebbe, and the quotations
Yes.
are from the
Yeah.
Torah.
Okay, key points. What are the key points? Avram is called the Hebrew because he stood on one side while the entire world was on the other. He stood as a shining minority against the world due to his unique faith in one God, along with a moral and ethical code that was foreign to his contemporaries. How can we demand that the Jewish people, as a tiny minority compared to humanity, uphold their principles and not be swept away by the majority of the world? And how can an insignificant minority influence the nations of the world? The question also applies to our personal divine service. As most of our time is spent on material matters, with only a small portion dedicated to spirituality, what is the benefit of spiritual effort when spirituality is always going to be the minority? The discovery of the atom teaches that through optimal utilization of quality, one can create a tremendous impact without needing a large quantity of material, as quality is what matters. Moreover, the way the quality within a particle is revealed is precisely through its division into smaller parts. We learned that we should not be deterred by the fact that the Jewish people are a minority, because by revealing the great quality within us, we can influence the entire world. Through the power of self-sacrifice akin to the fission of atom, and the atomic power within a Jew is revealed. This was the case with Avram. Initially, the world mocked his faith, but eventually he succeeded in convincing many to believe in one God. What's the takeaway? When we put on tefillin, light candles, or participate in a Torah lesson, we must remember that the quality inherent in these commandments impacts our lives far beyond the time we invest in them. Accordingly, as we uncover the full potential within us, we can influence the entire world much more than the numerical size of our people or the numerical size of the amount of people that come to Torah and Deed.
Thank you so much.
Each person's the whole world.
That's right.
This is very good. I never saw this.
I love it because it has sources. It's not just the teacher teaching. We could look inside, understand the sources and the points.
Because the name Ibn Eber, right? The Shaman Eber.
Yeah.
Also, Eber is also the same shorish as Ivri. Is it? It's interesting. Is it? I wonder if there's a connection there. Like in Hebrew, it's always interesting
It might be with an olive.
linguistically.
Same in Aver. Aver may be with an olive.
Olive.
It's a different
Right,
word.
right.
This is ayin. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It may be Shem and Aver. Son of Shem
Because
with
that's an
Aver.
interesting part in
I'm looking
Hebrew.
over here to
Everything
see-
is connected.
was it in
also
here?
to Torah.
It-
No,
Here it said Einer.
It's something that it is that I told.
Right,
you.
no, that was one of the kings. Inar,
Oh,
but
Very interesting. Fascinating.
I'm looking to see if it said, do we say Aver? Neither do I, right? Let me look it up, hold on.
what's the question? What's the question?
About the name Aver and the Greek, it's the same shoresh, because in the Torah in Hebrew, if it had the same shoresh, they're connected also meaning wise, you know. So we know that's how it is, everything in the Torah, how the numbers are connected, the words are connected. So that's interesting. What I wanted to mention, I just read this morning an interesting, not Chabad source, that Abraham, somebody made a comment that because Abraham question when Sarah was abducted,
Yeah, wait for the picture. Picture.
when Sarah was abducted, both times Abraham prayed. But when Lot was abducted, he took an army. Because when I read the Redeeming Captives, I thought maybe that's what they're going to also talk about. And there was a saying that people started saying that, at least somebody said that the reason why Jewish people was in the Egyptian exile is because Abraham did this. He took the people from the yeshiva, learning Torah, and took them to war to redeem a captive.
Can I just, my face?
Of course, it's Israeli. Can she? You just want to do that, you know? Yeah, I put your face in the.
Yeah.
Aver, no, it's with an ayin. Ayin, but it's the same word, you're right.
It is. Are we standing in one place?
Come here.
No, they gotta go over there. Perfect.
In this case, quantity does count.
That's right.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining. Yocheved, did you want to say anything? Any comments by you?
No, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing.
Something with Jay.
Okay,
So.
bye, dear.
Very friendly.
Bye.
Hurricanes.